Brad, you guys lost a couple of guys last year, DeAndre Square, Jacquez Jones, Jordan, that were alphas. Do you see, who do you see stepping up and becoming that guy on the defense, so to speak?
Yeah, obviously we lost, a lot of sort of veteran leadership, from last year, and guys, like you said, they were alphas for us, especially on the field. And I think that's a process right now. Not ready to tab anyone, but I think each level, guys know, it's clear and defined in the outside back room, right? Everybody knows it's J.J. Weaver, and I think he's doing a great job thus far, and it's a consistency. We talked about that last week with him in terms of leading and really coming out of his shell vocally, which is good. Really been impressed, with the back end. I think Zion has done a great job from that standpoint. Those two inside backers, I've been really pleased with sort of how they've developed thus far. Maybe not quite yet as vocal, but they're getting more than they ever have. And Ox up front, and so I think we've got guys at every level. I don't think it has to be, a one-man show, which is great. I like it because, if it's a one-man band, that's the vocal guy. If that guy ever loses his juice or, is having an off day, everybody feels it. But I think we've got the ability to spread it around, and that guy can not feel the weight of solo leadership. So it's been good thus far. And we need to continue to push there and demand of each other from a peer level.
You mentioned those inside backers and the vocal aspect. Square was like that. When he showed up, he was a quiet guy. He had to kind of come out of his shell. How do you use that example to try to get D-Jack and Trevin to be a little bit louder out there on the field?
Yeah, and I think we've got a lot of examples of that. I think, obviously, Square, was a prime example. But he came in, was a mid-year freshman, was really young out of high school, so he was, would barely say boo. It was funny, I was talking with him yesterday because obviously all those guys are back in town for Pro Day. And we were talking about, whichever team he gets to go to, it's basically starting over and you're going to walk in as that freshman again. But he made a statement with his pads. Well, those two inside backers, they've made statements with their pads and their play. So now I think they feel validated in being able to talk. And I think so much is guys feel like they have to validate, themselves, in their words with their play first and their actions before they can. And I think we've got enough guys that have enough banked reps and snaps that they feel like now they can start coming out of their shell.
How are those guys coming along behind Wallace and Jackson, or alongside them?
Yeah, I'll start with Tez. I think Tez, is going to be a guy that's really got to help us this year, and I think he's progressing. I think he understands the urgency. I've prodded him a little bit to understand that urgency piece. That, hey, listen, in this league, you look every year, you've got to play 4 or more inside linebackers. I mean, it's a brutal game in there, and so it's bound somebody's going to get dinged. They can't play every snap, so he's going to have to come along. I think he does a really nice job, sort of run fit wise. He's a natural fitter in the run game. Coverage is where he needs to continue to develop and sort of enhance his football awareness and IQ and coverage and understanding of routes and concepts. And Luke is progressing as well. So, but no, that's a group that we need to build that depth behind.
Brad, we saw Tyrese Fruby make a really nice play in the open practice Tuesday. Just how are those young outside backers progressing? It's going to need to be more than JJ, I assume.
That's, you know what, they're doing what young outside backers do. They'll make a splash play and then they'll do something that is less splashy. But that's okay. I'll do it until I'm no longer here. Is the fact that it takes time at that position. There's so much we put on them. But I think it's starting to slow down for all three of them. And you can see it there. They're able to just play. You saw that play with Tyrese, his natural athleticism. It can be scary when he puts it all together. And so they're just still trying to figure out when I leverage things, where their fits are. Because unlike practice, when I can stand there and if they're not in the right spot, I can yell to them and they think they did right, or they may have done right, but they only did it because I yelled it to them. Well, when I can't get that information on game day, it's not going to look nearly as pretty. So they have to be able to start doing that on their own.
Brad, it looks like Maxwell Harrison had a pretty good practice from we saw him Tuesday. Had a lot of reps to the ones. What have you kind of seen from him this spring and want to get out of him?
Max is the corner version of the young outside backers that we just talked about. He's going to make a splash play. He's probably had his hands on more balls and had more interceptions than anybody so far in camp, But then he also probably has more maybe mentals than so again, it's the learning factor. And a lot of it is the hot stove, right? You got to be able to know what you can and can't do. And every day he progresses, and then we do a new install, and then, all right, we're going to have mistakes, and then we're going to have to correct them. But he has done a nice job of learning from those mistakes. He's not a habitual offender in that, and that's the key, right? Is listen, guys are going to make mistakes, and you might even make the same mistake twice. Everybody's like, oh, don't make the same mistake. It happens, but I don't want to see it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. If that correction's been made, it should be a couple of practices before I see that mistake happen again. I don't want to see it the very next practice. I mean, if there's anything you should do, you should harp on the mistakes you had from the last practice. So he's doing a good job in that regard. Again, we're putting a lot on those DBs. I've been proud of how they're trying to handle all the different coverages and checks. There's a lot to it. It'll slow down once we get all the installs in, but it's a little bit of a fire hose right now. Just throw it all against the wall, see what sticks. And it's good for us as coaches too to, we're trying some new things. You always want to have some new wrinkles, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. Some of it you gotta you realize it may not be as good against this, or you have to make. So it's not always on the kids. It may be on the scheme itself.
Brandon Brown and Drew Phillips, Keith Barron said he and Drew go against each other. Have a lot of fun going, competing against each other. Talk about how Drew coming on.
Drew, I think, right now, I think just by pure reps and time in the defense, he probably has the most natural understanding, of our defense, from a corner perspective. And he gained a lot of confidence with all those reps he played, especially at nickel last year. So I think he's playing with a high amount of confidence. He has to stay locked in all the time. And because when he's locked in, he can be as good as all those corners that we've had here. Obviously really dynamic in the slot, but we need him to be able to play both spots. And but no, some of those competitions have been really good. Obviously with Barry on and with Dane, and so it's good to watch.
Have you found a permanent home for Alex Safari yet, or is it just a matter of get him on the field where you can get him on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I think his permanent home is somewhere out there, right? You don't want to give all my stuff away. No, I think the nice thing about Alex is he gives you a lot of different options, and he gives you some versatility and play some different areas, and he can play sort of all over the field. And he can play in the box, he can play in coverage. He can go ahead and match receivers. He can even play. He plays some half field. Like, we can do a lot of different deals. So when you have that kind of guy, it's going to give us the ability to have some sort of unique looks that maybe we haven't had in the past.
Is there, when you have all these kind of former players come back for pro day, is there any extra energy in the building on the practice field?
I think obviously the guys love to see those old guys back in. I don't know if pro day being tomorrow had anything to do with the added juice today. I think the guys just they love ball. I think offense, defense, and I'll speak just sort of defensively. I'll leave that to the coach Cohn. But defensively, I know it's a group of guys that they love to be out there. They love to compete with each other. They take it to heart when they don't win their competition. They're one-on-one. Whether it just be a single one-on-one rep, whether it be a team period or something, they take it to heart. And we as coaches, we take it to heart. We're competitive, and I think we talk about standards a lot. That's become the standard defensively, and they don't want to be the group that lowers that. If anything, they want to be the one that continues to push and elevate that standard and makes it harder and harder for the ones behind them to meet it. But then when you have that kind of competition, those young guys see, all right, I'm going to have to elevate my game to meet that. And then hopefully when they meet it here in a couple of years, they'll usher in the new group. And that's how you develop greatness within a building. And that's, obviously that's what we're shooting for defensively. We're not going to hide it. We're not there. But that's what we want to be.
Brad, putting your former NFL coach hat on, any of those guys working out tomorrow that you're particularly eager to see how they translate to the next level?
All of them. I would love for them all to make a team so I can sit back on Sundays and watch our upcoming opponent and then have NFL Red Zone on the TV and watch them all playing on Sundays. So I wouldn't say there's anyone that's more or less. But they all look great. They all look like they've gone to wherever their training site is. They look like they've come back ready. I'm excited. I think the NFL teams will be really impressed with the product they put out there tomorrow. And nobody's going to be cheering more than myself, this current team. Like that's been so much fun these last couple of years for those that come and can watch Pro Day, is that you see how engaged our current team is and how much they pull for. And I think the guys that are in the middle of those drills, they feed off that and they feel that. That's no different than us being on the field and feeding off of, BBN and Kroger Field. Like when you're trying to jump as high as you can on a vertical jump and you got all your buddies screaming, you get that extra juice and that extra jolt. And hopefully we can help these guys, sort of have their best showing thus far.
Brad, we've seen a lot of new faces at the corner position. You guys brought in some new guys, had a few guys leave, talked about Drew. But what are some of those new guys bringing to the table, even though it's early on?
Yeah, excited. I think, again, sort of all three of those, transfers with J-Rob from last year, you talk about JQ and JD, all three, are a little bit unique, but they've been competing. They're putting in time. And I can see all of those guys playing. Like I can see all five of those corners finding their way on the field, whether it be some nickel packages, dime packages, rotational and base and medium. The biggest thing is they all, especially, J-Rob's been in it for a year, so I think it's a little bit more comfortable for him. But when you can see, like when JQ is in a call that he's really comfortable in, like his length, you can just feel it out there, and he makes it hard for a quarterback to feel like I want to try to thread that ball. And JD's got some just really sort of special athletic traits. So again, they've all been competing. They all have still a ways to go. I'm glad we're not playing a game tomorrow. But I'm excited about this group, and I'm excited about the number of years we have left with this group. Like they're young. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to, they're probably going to give me a lot more gray hair over the next 12 months, but that's okay. Like they're also, I think, going to bring a lot of excitement.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're through. Absolutely.
I thought you were through. Okay.
No, you're good.
Yeah, we're done. Yes,
Tony cut me off today.